Hello, everyone. Let me just make sure that my audio is working. I'm using my big girl headphones today. So, um, I'm using my big girl perfect. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, y'all. Let's get started. So, I have a part one where I talk about so many other things for about an hour, and I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes. And so this is part two. I'm just finishing up the PowerPoint presentation that I made. I said in my other video that okay, sir, you cannot be over here. Okay, you need to go sit down somewhere. I swear, every time I get on live, my dog's like, oh, is it my turn to be seen? No, it's not. So I told you guys in the last video that I wasn't able to like just off the cuff talk about this. I had so many thoughts and I wanted to make sure that I got them all down and I talked about everything I wanted to talk about and kind of got into the nuances of things and had all of my disclaimers out there. So I have a PowerPoint for you guys. So we're just going to hop right back into it today and continue our conversation about Christian dating. Share screen. It should be this one. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So last video, I think I like this better. So on the last video, I talked about how women and men need to stop trying to open up Christian conversion academies. That was where I left off. And I talked about the fact that the conversion rate really is like 0.01%. So a lot of time women will spend years and years with a man who they know doesn't love the Lord and who they know is not, and this is not judgment or shame because I've done it too, kind of hoping that their salvation will like rub off on someone else and hoping that their fervor for the Lord will rub off. And it doesn't happen. Surely enough, it doesn't happen. So we're going to go ahead and move on from that. Okay, again, this is my disclaimer that I have every 5 slides or so, that I have not arrived. I've not done everything quote unquote right. So even things in this slideshow, these are things that I've learned after the fact. These are some of these things I've done, some of these things I wish I would have done. Some of these things are like, okay, if I were younger, what would I have done? So this is just my life experience, and I didn't do all of these things. So this is not to say this is the formula. These are just things to think about when you're dating. And I have it's still hot. My peppermint tea is still very, very hot. So I'm going to just let that thing cool off. Okay. Are you guys able to see? Okay, so I must be on the wrong. Hold on. I'm on the wrong slideshow. Hold on, because I'm moving my slides and you're not able to see it. So let me see if I'm on the right one here. Oh, this is the share screen. That is so interesting. Okay, it's not moving. Share this tab instead. Okay, perfect. I got it right. Okay. So now we're going to talk about red flags. And I have in the corner up there, see deal breakers, because your deal breakers are kind of like your guidelines for your red flags. Now, people can have all of the items on your list and still have some deal breakers, right? For me, I try to make I don't know what else to call it, but it's more of like a love list or like a marriage list or an ideal list. Those things kind of already aligned with my red flags. So I try to make them pretty close, so I didn't have to go through, oh, is this a deal breaker or not? Because I already knew. So the first thing that I pointed out is that if there's a lot of red pill adjacent talk. Now, the tricky thing about this is that red pill got a lot of their talking points from Christianity and from biblical standards of marriage. The problem with red pill is that it does so without the Holy Spirit and without the guidelines of scripture. So it's just submission, women, should be behaving like this, but there's not really a lot of talk about how men should behave, and how a lot of that the conversation around marriage, men and women in relationship, is really reserved for marriage. It's not reserved for dating. um it's giving angry, it's giving I hate women. And so I would get a little bit antsy if I started to hear sort of that Kevin Samuels red pill talk, because that's actually not in line with scripture. It is not the way that those people talk about women, and the way that they look at women as purely servants is not biblical. And I'm going to talk about servanthood in marriage as well later in this video, because I think it's important to talk about. Men who do not understand the difference between men and women, and I need to do an updated video on this, but men who do not understand that women are quite literally an entirely different creature than men, meaning women are designed to function differently than men. We are designed with a set of emotions that are readily accessible. So when men are like, you're so emotional, goodbye. Women are supposed to have emotions. If you struggle with women who have emotions, it might be because you never engaged with a real woman. You may have had masculine women in your life, and so you don't know what to do when a woman has emotions. That's a red flag. Am I saying that women should be crying all over the place and not in control of themselves? No, that's unbiblical. We're talking about Christian women here. Having emotions is part of being a Christian woman. You should be compassionate. You should have empathy. You should be sensitive to things. That's part of being a woman, is being sensitive. That is why, part of the reason why you're in a man's life as a wife, is that you are sensitive to things. You can sense things. Men's nervous systems are completely different than women's. So women are not meant to work 80 to 100 hours a week with no rest. Our literal hormonal structure and makeup is not conducive to that kind of work. Men are actually designed for that kind of like hard-lined, multiple days at a time work. Now, do they need rest? Absolutely. But we are made completely differently. And so when men don't understand this, and they don't appreciate it either, and value the way that God made men and women differently, to me that's a red flag. Is it a deal breaker? I don't know. To me, things can be taught. Like if they get into community with other healthy men, sometimes they can start to, other healthy men can say, hey man, they're not designed to function that way. So yeah, men who see women as servants, but he is not a servant. So this kind of goes back to the red pill adjacent talk, like you're basically meant to just cook, clean, and give me sex. That's a lot of men's view of marriage, particularly in the Christian church, because men are not taught that women have value outside of that. They view women as purely, they read one side of the Bible and they don't read the other. They don't see service and submission as being something that is reflexive, meaning it both sides receive it, although that's biblical. So they're not interested in how can I outserve my wife and how she's outserving and how she's serving me. They're thinking of this is what she's made for. She's designed to have my babies and clean my house and make me food. There are a lot of men out there who have that perspective, and they don't actually value or appreciate their wife. They don't want her to have a break. They just want her to be pregnant for as many years as possible because they're insecure. There's a lot of men out there like that, and you have to be careful because they don't actually value you as a woman. That is being valued as a woman and as also a an image bearer is really, really important. And some men do not like women. They don't like them. They like the idea that women can give them children. They like the idea that they can get their rocks off, but they do not actually like women as like people. That is something that you have to look out for. I'm sorry. And this will show up in Christian men too. So it's not like, oh, those are unbelievers. No, baby. A lot of people do not know what it means to love a woman. And so they don't know what to do when they're married. So you have to be able to kind of, this is where I have another slide on like family relationships comes into, is like kind of seeing what did you see growing up, because we may need to have some conversations about this. We may need to make sure that we're in a healthy church community so that we can be around other married couples and we can kind of model our lives after them. Because if a man did not grow up with an actual marriage, just two people kind of doing life together, then he may not know how to be a husband and a father, because it was just kind of like, this is my role, this is your role, but we're not doing this jointly. So there's just some things to think about. Men who are unable to be wrong. Again, men who struggle with being like, you know what, I was wrong. One thing that being a teacher, kids respect it when you're like, you know what, I was wrong about that, or I was wrong for doing that. That is something that I have been able to, oh, you're right. I was wrong. Being able to say that is really, really important. I was wrong. Men who cannot do that, I get nervous about, because I'm like, there's a self-righteousness there that is not, you need to get that. You need to go deal with the Lord on that. Yeah, because that means you can lie very easily because you're not able to say you're wrong. Men who are unable to submit to authority. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about when we were talking about like having a church body that he's going to, or having a Bible study group that he's going to, or having other men who can give him guidance. My husband and I have a couple that we kind of see as our spiritual accountability. And I think that's really, really important, to have a couple that you go to who's older than you, that is your spiritual accountability. And that you're willing to do that. You're willing to say, you know what, I need help. Like, we need help. Or if someone goes, hey man, that's unbiblical, like we really need to be doing something differently. That's important. And that kind of goes along with the accountability. Family background is important. You want to know if someone has abandonment issues. Does that mean it automatically precludes them from being someone who's potential marriage material? No, but you need to know that so that you know what you're getting into. That's just wisdom. Know that so you can say, okay, I love this person. We've prayed about our marriage, and we prayed that we've asked God if this is the right decision, and we've received confirmation. And now, since I know this person has abandonment issues, what can I expect? How can I expect it to show up? And maybe we just go to couples therapy, or counseling throughout. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Unresolved generational cheating is another one. I think there's a lot of that going around, where people think that just because they're saved, that's not something that they are going to override biology. And it's difficult to do that. It's difficult to, if you have not worked out, like how you deal with being disliked, how you deal with stress, how you deal with life. Sometimes people, that is their method of stress release, is cheating. So you have to be able to, it's the same thing if someone's method of stress relief is gambling or alcohol. Like, you actually have to dig in deep and make sure that they've dealt with that, because that is something that you do not want to jump into a marriage with, when it's like, okay, how you cope with life is that you go and cheat. You just go be with women. Yeah, no. next red flag, or this is sort of like just a point basically that I am saying, is you cannot heal or fix men. I've made that mistake many a times in my life, thinking that, oh, if I just do this, if I just do that, like then he'll do. No, you can't fix men. You can't fix anyone. It's like, you're not going to do that. You cannot heal or fix people. So if you go into a marriage thinking, oh, I'll do this and he'll do that. No, he won't. I'm telling you right now, he will not. Um, so that's probably not the best thought to go into. You need to just accept people for who they are. Um, People who do not have resilience or perseverance, or the ability to withstand trial, that's a red flag for me. Mostly because it's like, if you can't do that, then you're probably turning to unproductive things to deal with it. Excessive social media use. I think men who post on Instagram to be seen, or post like on TikTok to be seen, struggle. Like, to me, that's very feminine. Like, women are like, we like to be seen. We like to be, pretty and beautiful. When men are like that, it's kind of like, ooh, I don't like that, because that means you need attention. And so if a woman is messaging you because you love attention, how do I know that you're going to be able to say no to that? So I'm not into, business purposes is different, but I'm not into men who just like post on social media to be seen. That's strange to me. Submission before marriage. Men who expect submission before marriage are a no. Marriage submission is designed for marriage. Now, does that mean you are just combative and wily and rude? And no, it just means that if a man says, oh, you need to submit, it's like, woo, I'm out, because you're not my husband. I will submit to my husband. My submission is to God first. And that kind of goes with this like red pill adjacent talk where people are like, you need to be submit. Girlfriends do not need to submit. Girlfriends and really, I'm like, y'all, we really don't need to be anybody's girlfriend. But yeah, girlfriends do not need to submit. Okay, let's move on to the next one. One thing that people have talked to me about a lot is like meeting men. So let's talk about, where are you meeting these people? Church. I think church is one of the better places to meet someone, and not even your church, but even other churches. There's a lot of like community events that you can go to where you can just be out and about. One thing that we do in this generation that's kind of unproductive is that we like to be inside and we like to stay to ourselves. And it's hard to meet people unless you are out and about and in public. So church is a place where you can meet people. So if you're not plugged into a church, you might need to do that. And I said this in the other video, but one thing I used to do is I used to go to my church, but we didn't have like a ton of young people. So then I would go to the 20s and 30s groups at another church during the week. So I was just meeting people, and it wasn't even necessarily to get married. It was just because I needed to be in community with other people. And I also needed to grow my relationship with God. So you need to be doing that anyway, because that will give you extra discernment. When you're actually constantly plugged in with other Christians, it helps you to gain discernment. So your friends, grow your community while you're young. One thing that I wish I would have done in college was got involved with the FCA, which is the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or a Christian women's group on campus. We had 2 Christian women's groups on campus, and I never joined them, mostly because I was like an athlete, and I was so lost in college, and not necessarily spiritually, that too, but also just like, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I wish I would have joined. One of the girlfriends down the hall was like, you should join our Christian women's group. And I was like, yeah. And I just like never did. I was like in the Black groups and and I just wish I would have really refocused my attention to another group, because number one, I would have developed my relationship with God sooner. And I would have had a really nice community of Christian women to engage with. So, I would definitely recommend, if you're in college, or even sometimes at workplaces, if you're at a bigger company, they might have like a Christian group, or someone might be suggesting a Bible study. One thing that I actually, since I've moved, I've been meaning to find Christian girlies to hike with in the Bay Area. And I need to find, there's like a group on Reddit, I think, that I'll need to go hop into and meet up with. But that's important. You can meet people from your family and of course online, which is what we're going to talk about. There are there's like the just lunches and the the hiking groups and the dancing groups and whatever, here's what I always say. People used to say, why don't you go to happy hour? And I would say, because the man I'm looking for shouldn't be in happy hour. He shouldn't be at happy hour. Maybe, but I that's not the person that I want to meet. I would ideally, he's on his way to Bible study, you know. But that might be a place too. Okay, let's talk about online dating. Okay. So, do not compromise for more options. The biggest thing I see is that a lot of women will either not put Christianity on their profile, or they will open up their options to people who are not Christians because they want more options. Trust me, I have experienced this. I know that when you start to narrow down your choices, that you get like one or two people. That's okay. That's okay. Do not compromise for more options. Put your Christianity on full display. So what I would do is I put like, I am Christian in my profile, not just check the box, but I put I'm a Christian and I'm serious about it. And it matters. And what I would get is people would match with me and then they would say, sorry, I'm not a Christian, or sorry, it's not that important to me. Sorry, I don't go to church. Great. My options whittled down very, 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 very quickly, which was actually a good thing, because if that's a good, that means that I'm getting the right kind of people. I'm not just getting random people who say they're a Christian and then I come to find out, yeah, you're not really serious. So the right people will come to you if you have that in your profile, because the kind of person who wants to see that is also the kind of person that you want to see. Now, here's the other thing. Men who do not make that a point to, it's strange to me. Men who do not say, I'm a Christian and it's important, it's a little off. So if a man doesn't really talk about it in his profile to any degree, I'm a little concerned. It's not a completely a no, but I'm like, we need to have some conversations about that. Another online dating thing. If a man says, so on Tinder, at least I know it'll be like, what are you looking for? And if a man says long-term, possibly short, it's a no. What the heck are you looking for a short-term relationship for? We are not the same, baby, because you know what short-term means. We are not the same. We're not looking for a fling. We're looking for marriage. Not necessarily marriage with you, but I'm looking for marriage. Just because, I'm looking for marriage doesn't mean it has to be with you, with the right person. So that's just some free game on online dating. You want to make sure that you put your convictions out there. It doesn't have to be a whole paragraph. Keep it short and sweet. I think I said, I'm a Christian and it's important. Looking for marriage with the right person. Period. I don't care if you think I'm weird. I'm not looking, because then I filter out the foolery. I filter out the foolishness. Your profile picture matters and your social media matters. Here's why. Sometimes we put pictures up that do not indicate that we are women of God. So bikini photos, no. Swimsuit photos where you're not basically covered up, no. So like if you're on like a boat and you're wearing like a dress that has shows, that's fine. But remove all of the uncovered photos, because it sends a mixed message and you attract the wrong people. Your social media matters. If you say you're a believer, but then you have things on your social media that indicate that you're more like the world than you are a believer, I'm sorry, but a man who really is serious about God is not going to be interested in that. He's not. There's my disclaimer. Okay, date intentionally. I think everyone should date until someone puts a ring on the finger. I was not interested in being a girlfriend. I personally did not. I did that and I was like, this does not necessarily work for me, because number one, there's my dad used to say there's no such thing as girlfriend and boyfriend in the Bible. It's true. I think that if you want to be exclusive with someone, be exclusive, but also like date your life, date your friends, keep doing what you're doing. I do think that you shouldn't just lock in with one person very quickly. This does not mean sleep around. The problem is that when I say date, like date multiple men or date around, people think that it means sleep around, because we don't understand that you can date and not get in people's pants. That's a problem, especially if you're a Christian. You should be able to date men and get to know men and decide before you become exclusive with them. You need to date multiple men until you know that you want to be exclusive with someone. And at that point, the point in which you are exclusive is when he's talking about marriage. That's the point. So you don't even necessarily have to so there's women who are like, well, I don't really feel comfortable doing that. That's fine. But the point is, number one, that you're not obsessed with someone. So you need to have other things to do besides be worried about a man. Like have hobbies, have your job, have things to do besides worrying about a man. So that you don't become obsessed. Christian men are still men, which means they still enjoy a chase. They still enjoy, and chasing doesn't mean you're playing hard to get. It means that your world is not all about them. You every time he calls you, you don't need to be like, oh, yes, hello. Like it's a little clingy. It's true. I know that people don't like that, but it's a little clingy. You need to have a life, because when you get married, your husband's not going to make you happy. He's not. So you need to be happy without a husband, without a man. You need to learn how to be happy without a man. They want you to have a life. They want you to have things, because what happens is when you get married, you then become hyper focused on your husband and what he's doing, and it's like, no, you need to have a life outside of what he has going on. Have your own spiritual life, have your own friend groups. It's called being a well-rounded person. If you want to do like the whole courtship thing, I think that's fine. Everyone defines courtship differently. So I think it's fine if you want to be in a courtship. But I still think that you shouldn't be exclusive until you know that this is the person that you probably want to spend the rest of your life with. So continue to go on coffee dates, get to know people's different perspectives, because you can also end up, it's a way to not waste time. Truly, you waste time when you get into a relationship and you're exclusive and you cut yourself off from other men, and then before you know it, a year and a half has gone by and he's still like, yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure. No, let's both get to know each other. And this is where, if you're dating a healthy man, he's not sleeping around either. So it's okay if he's dating other people and you're dating other people, because there's no worry about disease and all that stuff. And this is where, you know, okay, what is his actual personal situationship with God? Because if he cannot date women without sleeping with them, then that's the wrong man anyway. You guys should be able to date other people because you're not sleeping around. That's the tea. And then you can say, you know what, we've dated other people. We think that we're, we see that we're compatible, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I just have a few thoughts on marriage that I think will be really important because one of the things that society pressures women to get married, and things have changed dramatically in our society. Women no longer need men to make money, or to be successful or to have property. And so when you get married, you're not getting married for the same reasons as you did before. A lot of women got married for a financial come up, and not in like a gold digger way, but like that's just literally how the institution of marriage worked for women. A lot of times it was like, okay, marry from this family and this is how we grow it. It was like a more of a business transaction. And so when you get married now, you're getting married because number one, you feel like that's what God is calling you to do. And you understand that it's a sanctification process. And so I want to share this quote from Paul Washer, because I think this kind of sets up people for the reality of marriage, which I don't think, this whole idea of like, okay, we've been talking about red flags and deal breakers and perfection, but I want, like, this is quite literally marriage. So I'm going to read this to you and like just kind of hop in and out and tell you guys what I think. Marriage is the greatest instrument of sanctification. Think about it. How do you learn unconditional love if your spouse meets all conditions? And here's the kicker. Your spouse is going to meet your immediate list, right? But then you're going to get into marriage and there's going to be things that you realize that you need that he does not meet. Unconditional love. I'm telling you, it's a doozy. How do you learn mercy when they never fail you? They will absolutely fail you. Again, going back to perfection, like, oh, this person, I'm marrying this guy or this idea of this guy, and I, you know, um, and he's perfect, or this is what I want him to be. He's not going to be. How do you learn mercy if they never fail you? They will fail you. How do you learn patience when they're never difficult? Okay, so let's say he meets your love list, but he doesn't do things, on time, or he procrastinates, or he's difficult, like literally does not have good communication. You thought he had good communication because when you guys were dating, it was pretty good, but things come up in marriage that are very different than in dating. So how do you learn patience when they're never difficult? Because they're going to be difficult. How do you practice forgiveness when they never sin against you? They're going to sin against you. So setting yourself up for understanding that this is what marriage is really important. How do you show grace when they're always perfect? They're not going to be perfect. What is the real purpose of marriage? It's not happiness. Will it add to your happiness? Yes, but your joy should be found before you get married. It's not companionship. Oh, that's part of it, but that's not the real purpose. It's not even love. It's transformation. The main purpose of marriage is that through it, you both become conformed to the image of Christ. And this is why marrying someone who actually loves the Lord is so important, because you can actually, someone who's spiritually healthy, let me get that right. Someone who's spiritually healthy is important because they can see we're being conformed to the image of Christ. It's been a year. Is it 2 years? No, a year. And I can tell you that I have had to look at this and go, this is what marriage is about. We have a blast. We have a lot of fun, but this is what marriage is about. And so set yourself up for success by knowing that this is how it is. So it's not that he needs to be perfect. He just needs to not have a bunch of red flags. He needs to be able to fit, you guys need to be able to be compatible, but expecting perfection, you will always find something when you get married that you did not know before about someone. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can just be that now that you're in close quarters, now that people are starting to get comfortable, things are changing. So, okay. A few thoughts on marriage. It's worth the wait. Even though I said all that stuff before about, oh, I wish I would have done a little bit more work when I was younger and really focused on having a family and getting healthier when I was younger. I think I'm a better person now than I was then, of course, praise God. Um, so I'm a better match now than I would have been then. But that did not come without some sacrifices. That did not come without some painful experiences. So it's like pick your poison. Many women marry quickly out of desperation, only to find out that they have married a poser. Especially in the Christian church, we do this thing where we really like, you know, banter? No. Badger women into getting married and, oh, when are you going to get married? And I've talked about this before. These people, oh, they look down on you because you're not married. Then when you get married, they look down on you because you don't have children. And when you do get married, they look down on you because they don't like the way your spouse is. Like, it's just wild to me. Like, the church is so funny. The church is so funny. But many women get married quickly because they feel the pressure from the church, from their family, from their friends to get married, only to marry some poser, some guy who was able to just pretend for long enough that he was a believer, to pretend for long enough that he had done the work, pretend for long enough. So you need to really be watching what people do and not what they say. And with that being said, God can work on any man, but it's more prayer, supplication, and submission than you may be ready to deal with. So sometimes it's not worth it for some people, and some people it's worth it. And that's why I said at the beginning, part one, that you really getting to know what you are able to deal with and someone that's a match for you and someone who's compatible is really important, because then you know what you're willing to deal with, because it is a dealing with. You're not perfect, I'm not perfect. It is a dealing with. So yeah, that is my chat. Here's my disclaimer. I've not arrived. I did not do everything right. Some of the information is things I've done, some of this did not. So this advice is what I wish I knew before I starting, but did not know. Take with what you will from this. All right, you guys, I am so glad to be done with this little series. I wish I could make the two videos together. If someone knows how to do that, like put the two videos together so I just have one video, let me know. Because I mean, I guess I can put them in a playlist, but yeah, let me know, because I would love to do that instead of having two videos out in the ether. All right, you guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment so other people can see this video, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.